Hi, I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Teleos. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study on the book of Acts. We're in chapter 12. Last time we covered Herod Agrippa I, who was over the area of Palestine in general, and he had killed James, the brother of John, James the Greater, and had imprisoned Peter. And God miraculously let Peter out of prison. And after this, Herod Agrippa went to the coast, probably embarrassed over what had happened, that once again, a prisoner of the authorities in Jerusalem had been released, Peter specifically both times, miraculously. So we pick up the story here in Caesarea. I think he's still in Caesarea. We don't know specifically, but I think that's the implication. Last time I said I didn't know the title of Herod Agrippa, and here it is, to my knowledge. He was king of Batanea, Trachonitis, Gaulonitis, Auranitis, Paneas, and Iturea. And also he later was to rule Judea and Samaria. So that's a lot. So he was well regarded, and actually later, after his death, his son Agrippa II will also rule in the area of Judea. So let's pick up the action here in verse 20. Herod was displeased with both Tyre and Sidon. That's why I think he's in Caesarea, because Tyre and Sidon were along the coast, Phoenician cities. He was unhappy with them. We don't know the reason why. They had made friends, these two cities, with Blastus, the king's chamberlain, otherwise a high official at court. And they desired peace because their country was dependent upon Herod to receive nourishment, bread, food, etc. So I don't know the agricultural ability of the coast along the Phoenician coast, what would now be Israel. But they obviously needed supplies, and maybe some of this would have come to Egypt, which was a large bread basket for the whole Roman Empire. So Herod had them with him. He sat himself in royal array, he sat upon a throne, and made an oration to them. We don't know what he was saying, but he was probably aggrandizing himself, considering what happens, and perhaps berating them for their attitude as well, for whatever their argument was. And the people gave a shout, and the voice is the voice of a God and not of a man. So they're probably trying to placate Agrippa so they could get back in his good graces and get food. Romans often ascribed deity to their leaders, and the leaders often ascribed it to themselves. As Vespasian, the famous emperor who died in 79, as he died, he exclaimed, "I'm about to become a god," for example. Verse 23, immediately the angel of the Lord smote him, otherwise afflicted him with a disease, because he gave God not the glory. He was glorifying himself. He was eaten of worms and died. And the word of God grew and multiplied. Last verse in 25, and Barnabas and Saul returned to Jerusalem when they fulfilled their ministry. And I think this is back in chapter 12, where they were in Antioch ministering for a year, and took with them John, whose surname was Mark. Okay, so that's an important lead into chapter 13, but we're not quite there yet. So what's this tell us about God essentially putting Agrippa to death? So he intervenes at a very high level in the Roman leadership. For what reason? Well, I think, we don't know specifically, to protect the church and his chosen people to spread his word. So that tells us a lot right there. We know in the Old Testament God did this frequently, and obviously there was God influenced activities during the time of Christ. So in the early church, is this an early church event, or does he do it still today? And if you read news posts by Christians or social Christians even, they will ascribe God's actions consistent with what he did in the Old Testament. Now, is that fair? Why did God kill people, put them to death in the Old Testament? Well, generally, I mean, it was his wrath and they deserved it. It was generally to protect the seed, Messiah, in Israel. He was protecting Israel, and when they split Judea, such as Sennacherib, the Assyrian king, when he surrounded Jerusalem, and King Hezekiah, he was protecting the seed. So he, at other times, he brought down leaders and humbled them, yes. But I think that's a general rule. Now, does he do that now at the time of the church? Maybe. And I think he was protecting the church here, but we just don't know. So we have to be careful in ascribing actions to God that we don't know that he does, because in the epistles, those letters from the apostles in the time of the church, he's not saying that he does that. Now, if you look at large empires, godless empires, who try to crush the church and take over the world or large regional areas, such as ancient Rome, you think of the huge caliphate, the Charles V of the Habsburg Empire in the 1500s. You think of Napoleon and Stalin and Hitler. All these did not like the church and tried to control vast swaths of people. And they all disappeared. And the church remains. So you'll have to decide that for yourself. I don't think he interacts with our world like he did the Old Testament world for the same reasons, because he manages his people in a different way in the Old Testament, Israel. But we also don't know everything that he does. So again, we'll have to think about that and decide for ourselves, but really be people of prayer and really be people of faith. Okay, what have we seen here? God kills Herod Agrippa I for his evil actions, I think, towards the church and his pride, and influences the course of history and the church, protecting the church by his actions. Now we'll come to a huge change of topic, or another new direction of the church in chapter 13 that distances us further from the early church, and based in Jerusalem and based in miracles and the apostles. Next time, it's really the story of Paul. Thank you for being here today, and I hope you'll join me then for that next video. Goodbye for now.